What if I told you there's a story in the Bible where a common animal, a simple donkey, saw God's presence before one of the most powerful prophets of the time? And what if I told you that same donkey spoke and saved this man's life when he was completely blinded by greed? Would you stay? Because what you're about to discover will forever change how you see the signs God places in your path. This is the true story of Balaam, the prophet who almost died because he couldn't see what an animal saw perfectly. Imagine a man at the peak of spiritual power. Balaam wasn't just any prophet, he was the prophet. His words had the power to bless or curse entire nations. Kings paid fortunes just to have an audience with him. When Balaam spoke, heaven listened. When he prayed, mountains moved. His reputation echoed from the lands of the Euphrates to the sands of the Moab desert. But there was something dangerous growing inside this man of God's heart, something he couldn't see himself. Fame had become an addiction, money, an obsession, and pride. Oh, pride had become his secret god. It was the year 1400 BC. The people of Israel, after 40 years wandering in the desert, were camped in the plains of Moab. More than 2 million people stretched their tents like a human ocean that seemed endless, and from atop his palace, King Balak watched that multitude with growing terror in his eyes. Balak knew there was no army in the world capable of facing Israel. They had defeated giants, crossed the Red Sea on dry land, and had been fed by God himself for 4 decades in the desert. How could he fight against such a people? It was then that the king's perverse mind found a solution. If he couldn't defeat Israel by force, perhaps he could destroy them through spiritual curse. And there was only one man in the world with enough power for that: Balaam. The messengers arrived at the prophet's house carrying a fortune in gold and silver. The proposal was simple and tempting. Come with us, curse this people called Israel, and you'll be the richest man in the East. That night, alone in his room, Balaam prayed. But it wasn't a sincere prayer seeking God's will. It was the kind of prayer we make when we've already decided what we want to do, and we're just looking for a divine excuse to justify our choice. God answered clearly, "Do not go with them, do not curse the people, because they are blessed." The words were crystal clear, with no room for interpretation. But Balaam's heart was already captive. He dismissed the first messengers, but when Balak sent a second delegation with an even more generous proposal, something sinister happened. Have you ever found yourself bargaining with God? Making that prayer where you kind of ask permission to do what you've already decided you're going to do? Balaam began playing a dangerous game. He wanted divine approval for his disobedience. In the second prayer, God said something that seemed like permission. "If these men have come to call you, get up and go with them." But there was a crucial condition that Balaam chose to ignore. "However, you will only do what I tell you." The prophet heard only what he wanted to hear. The next morning, he saddled his donkey, the same donkey that had accompanied him for years, who knew each of his moods, every path he traveled, and set off toward the wealth awaiting him in Moab. But God was furious, not with Balaam's words, but with the intention of his heart. And it was at that moment that something extraordinary was set in motion, a lesson that would be told for millennia. The sun was high when Balaam rode down the dusty road, accompanied by the princes of Moab. His heart beat fast, not with fear, but with greed. He already imagined the gold in his hands, the fame he would have after cursing the most feared people on earth. But his donkey, his faithful companion of so many journeys, began acting strangely. First, she simply left the road and entered the field. Balaam, irritated, beat her to make her return to the path. What a stubborn animal, he thought. A few kilometers ahead, the road narrowed between 2 stone walls, and again, inexplicably, the donkey pressed so close to the wall that Balaam's leg was crushed against the stones. The pain was intense, the anger even greater. He beat the animal more violently, but it was in the third incident that something supernatural happened. In an even narrower passage, where there was no way to turn either right or left, the donkey simply stopped and lay down on the ground, refusing to take even one more step. Balaam's fury exploded. He got off the donkey and began beating her with his rod, screaming, publicly humiliating the animal before the princes who accompanied him. His reputation was being tarnished because of a stubborn donkey. And then the impossible happened. The donkey opened her mouth and spoke. "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times?" Imagine the scene for a moment. An animal talking, not in animal language, but in human words, clear, articulated. The princes of Moab must have been paralyzed with terror. Any normal person would have fainted from shock. But Balaam was so blinded by greed, so hardened by pride, that he answered the donkey as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Because you have mocked me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you now." The donkey, with wisdom that shamed the prophet, replied, "Am I not your donkey, on which you have ridden since the day I became yours until today? Have I ever been accustomed to do so to you?" And Balaam had to admit, no. And think about it. An animal was giving lessons in logic and faithfulness to one of the wisest men of the time. The donkey was questioning her master's hasty judgment. She was saying, "In all these years we've been together, have I ever disobeyed you? So why do you think I would do this today without an important reason?" It was at that instant that God opened Balaam's eyes, and what he saw must have frozen his blood and stopped his heart. There, standing right in the middle of the road, was an angel of the Lord. Not just any angel, but a warrior angel, imposing, with a flaming sword unsheathed in his hand, ready to strike. The angel had been there the whole time, since the first deviation of the donkey, and with each step Balaam tried to take toward disobedience, the closer he came to his own death. The donkey saw the angel. The donkey understood the danger. The donkey had been trying to save her master's life for kilometers, and Balaam, the great prophet, was completely blind. The angel spoke, and his words cut like a blade. "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to oppose you, because your way is evil before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If she had not turned away, I would have killed you and left her alive." Do you understand what this means? God was willing to kill the famous prophet and spare the faithful donkey. The animal had more spiritual value at that moment than the anointed man. Balaam fell face down on the ground, trembling. All his arrogance, all his supposed wisdom, all his spiritual pride melted like wax before the fire of truth. He confessed, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you stood in the way against me." But the story doesn't end there. God allowed Balaam to continue the journey, but with one condition: he could only speak the words that God put in his mouth. And when he arrived in Moab, instead of cursing Israel, Balaam blessed them 4 times. Each attempt by Balak to make him curse the people resulted in even greater blessings. The donkey saved not only Balaam's life, but also the life of all the people of Israel. If the prophet had managed to curse them, who knows what tragedy would have befallen them. But there's a question that haunts me whenever I read this story, and I'm sure it will haunt you too. How many times has God placed donkeys in our path to prevent us from making terrible mistakes, and we beat them? How many times have we interpreted difficulties, obstacles, life's no's as enemy attacks, when they were actually divine protection? How many times have our ambition, our greed, our pride blinded us to the clear signs God was sending? Think about the last times you had to change your plans against your will. That door that closed at the last minute, that business that didn't work out, that relationship that ended unexpectedly, that opportunity that slipped from your hands. What if? What if some of these donkeys were sent by God to protect you from something much worse? What was waiting for you at the end of that path? Balaam's donkey wasn't stubborn. She was obedient. She wasn't rebellious. She was protective. She wasn't hindering the journey. She was saving a life. Sometimes God's greatest blessings come disguised as obstacles. Sometimes His no is the most loving thing He can give us. Is there someone in your life you've been beating because they insist on warning you about a dangerous path you've chosen? A father who warns you about that relationship. A friend who questions your financial decisions. A spouse who expresses concern about your priorities. Maybe your donkey isn't a person, but a circumstance. Maybe it's your own body giving you signals that you need to stop. Maybe it's your conscience bothering you about a choice you're about to make. Like Balaam, sometimes we're so focused on the destination we want to reach that we become deaf and blind. We become deaf and blind to the warnings God places in our path. The great irony of this story is that Balaam, the famous seer, was blind, and the donkey, considered a dumb animal, was the only one wise enough to see the spiritual reality around them. This teaches us something profound about spiritual wisdom. It has nothing to do with titles, positions, fame, or intellectual knowledge. It has to do with a heart sensitive to God's voice, no matter through whom or what He chooses to speak. But Balaam's story has an ending that few know, and that needs to be told. Although he was prevented from cursing Israel that day, Balaam didn't completely learn the lesson. After these events, recorded in the book of Numbers, we discover something shocking in the book of Revelation. Balaam developed an even more diabolical strategy. If he couldn't destroy Israel through direct curses, he would do it through moral corruption. He taught Balak to place Moabite women in the path of Israelite men, leading them to prostitution and idolatry. His greed transformed him from prophet to evil consultant. The man who once spoke with God face to face became a spiritual mercenary, selling destruction strategies to whoever paid more. In the end, Balaam died in war, fighting alongside the enemies of God's people. The prophet, who could have been remembered as one of the great men of faith, became a symbol of warning about the dangers of spiritual greed. Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward. Jude 1:11. The donkey tried to save him not only from physical death that day, but also from the spiritual death that awaited him. Unfortunately, some lessons we only learn when it's too late. Do you want to know what's the scariest part of this story? It's not the fact that a donkey spoke. It's the fact that Balaam continued talking to her as if it were normal. This reveals the dangerous state his soul was in. When you're spiritually blind, even the most obvious miracles go unnoticed. You can be living in the midst of the supernatural and not realize it. Maybe today, as you watch this video, God is trying to speak to you. God is trying to speak to you through your own donkey. Maybe He's using the simplest circumstances of your life to show you something you can't see. The question isn't whether God is speaking. He always is. The question is, are you listening? Are you seeing? Or are you so focused on your own plans that you've become deaf and blind like Balaam? He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Jesus Christ. And remember, sometimes God uses the most unlikely animals to save the lives of the most arrogant prophets. If this story touched something deep inside you, if you recognize that maybe you've been beating some donkeys that God placed in your path, leave a comment telling what was your biggest discovery watching this video. And if you want to continue discovering biblical stories that will revolutionize your spiritual vision, subscribe to this channel, but only if you have the courage to see the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Because the next story I'm going to tell might be even more disturbing than this one. And maybe it's exactly what your soul needs to hear.